is another video from Mr. S. This is for my honors pre-calculus class. Okay. This one says solve. So how is that different than verifying? Well, when you're solving, you want to get an angle or the answer that the theta equals something. So I should have said solve for the theta. All right. So this example is in the book. It's example 6 from page 449. But I'll just go through this so you get to see how the process works. All right. So to solve this, the best way to do it is usually when I see something like a cotangent, I like to break it down to a basic writing of the cotangent itself. Because cotangent is a combination of two functions, right? It's a sine and cosine, but the cosine is on top of a sine. So I'm gonna write that as my beginning. This business on the side here, sometimes you don't have that, you don't have to worry about it. But if you do, you gotta worry about that a little bit. We'll talk about that. Maybe I'll save it for a class discussion when we meet on Zoom, okay? So let me change that up. So I said cotangent is supposed to be cosine of a tangent of a theta over sine of a theta. Tangent is sine over cosine. Cotangent is cosine over sine. So now this side I got cosine to the third power over a sine like that. Okay. So now if I want to solve this problem, this is just let's say if I have something like this. Let's say if I have x over 5 equals 7 over 5. Just, simple equations like that or fractions like that. Don't you already know what the x equals to? You should already have an idea of x equals 7 because the 5 here doesn't really matter. That's one way to think about them. Now mathematically you can't just ignore them. So what you're doing is you can multiply both sides here. All right. What I'm trying to tell you is that your cosine cube on this side should equals cosine over there, which is kind of weird, but that's okay. So I'm going to go through the process. So I'm multiplying sine of theta on this side. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I use a lot of parentheses. It doesn't cost me anything. So that will cancel. This will cancel. Because it's sine divided by sine, they cancel out. You got cosine cube equals cosine of a theta. Just like this. If you multiply this by 5, the 5 cancels out. Multiply this by 5, your 5 cancels out. Your x equals 7. So all of that means your top equals to each other when the bottom is matching. All right, so to solve for something like this, this now created a problem where you have a higher degree than 1. So you might have to set one side equal to 0. So by subtracting cosine on this side to the back of that cosine cube. All right, so you subtract out your cosine of x. Pause and rewind if you don't understand that part, okay? So now here your factor. So far you see a lot of factoring, so get used to it. The best you can factor is the cosine. So cosine to the 1 power is factored out. Then you got cosine squared here, our theta minus 1. Okay. Now each one is, since it's a product, it's going to be set equal to 0. So let me delete this part. Quickest way to delete. Select, hit delete. All right, I'm out of it. So now I'm going to separate them into two products. The products now is going to be separated into two parts, not two products. So I'm going to take a factor here, the cosine of a theta equals to 0. So that's one part I will be concerned about. I can finish this one here. So this is going to be a unit circle type, because the question here is asking cosine of what angle? Cosine is the x. So cosine of what angle, or the x on what angle, is 0. So you can trade the cosine out for x. You say x of what angle is 0. So from the unit circle, let me see if I'm going to pull up. Create a unit circle, a quick one here. Ooh, that's bad. Cosine is the x. So I think the x up here has a 0. And the x down here also is 0. So you have to state these two angles, which is pi over 2. That's ugly pi. And this one is 3 pi over 2. Okay? So this here has two answers. Okay, so your theta now has two answers. Your pi over 2 and also 3 pi over 2. Okay, go back and watch that part if you missed it. Now the next item I have to solve is, I just finished solving cosine theta equals 0. Now I'm going to take cosine squared minus 1 and solve this part. Okay, I'm going to set it equals 0 because each part is 0. The product therefore is 0. So to solve this one, I have to add 1 to both sides. So it looks like this. Then I have to get rid of my square. So when I want to get rid of the square, I have to square root both sides. So square root them. Your square and square root knocks itself off. Then square root of square root of the 1 has positive and negative 1. So now from the unit circle, you are looking for, I just saw a unit circle from this page here. There you go. All right, so from the unit circle, I'm looking for the cosine, which is the x. So same question, x of what angle is negative 1 and positive 1? You should have two angles. This angle here is 0, and this angle here is a pi. Okay? So there is your two other answers. So this problem has 4 answers. 0 in radian, because we'll talk about radian. And then you got a theta equals a pi. Okay? So that's the end of the question. It's for a long time. We'll talk about this in class when you get to my class. Make sure you ask about this. So that means you watched you saw my video. You watched it. All right. So what does that mean? We'll talk about that. Okay. So signing out for now.